crumping to the flat of the blade, but also crumping short and crumping to the hands. 3 key tactics from Lichtenauer's Zettel for the Krumphau. Here's how to train it. Next. Today, we are going to dive into some really practical discussion points as far as if you want to take Krumphau and use that in a very practical and competitive kind of way, how do we get there, right? So we've got a bunch of videos in the past where we've actually talked through the mechanics and a little bit into the tactics of not just crumping to the flat of the blade, but also crumping to the hands, if the hands are targets that present themselves first, or actually crumping behind the opponent's blade to their outside in case you can actually get behind and actually do the shortcut tactic. So those sort of like key 3 tactics that are mentioned in Lichtenauer's verse, his Zettel. It's one thing to have a really solid interpretation of how to do those things, I think, you know, we can debate those things. It's always fun to have those conversations from an interpretive perspective. But regardless of what your interpretation is, at the end of the day, you got to be able to use it. So now we're trying to bridge from, okay, we understand the mechanics, we even understand the tactics, but how do we integrate it into our regular fencing so that we are not doing much more basic stuff like just keeping distance and sniping to the hands and actually using really basic mechanics. So this is a much more complicated mechanic. You know, when we're doing things where we actually have to cross our hands, cross our wrists, you know, be able to use these full moulinet-like actions, they can definitely take more time and require much more angular understanding and distance management. And so trying to integrate that in can definitely be tricky. So first things first, you know, we kind of start with, all right, the basic default crump, how does that work, right? So we've got videos of this. You can go back to kind of look at our Krump 101 series. Very important that, you know, for a cut that is coming in on my right side, we don't swing from our right and give all of this angle away, right? So from here, if something is coming in at this angle, I want to match it as quickly as possible by coming from here this way, which leads to this basic running off kind of pattern. You know, from the side, it's going to look like this. And the idea is to get on top of that blade and brush it down. Get that edge on the opponent's flat, glide along, push it down into Schrankut. And you can repeat this if the attacks keep coming from this side. And then if something comes from here, I can switch over and run off on this side. Okay, nothing new. This is stuff that we've done before. Question is, what happens when it's not the blade that's the target? Okay, so I'm going to pull Andre over here, and I'm going to just kind of walk through the tactics again of when do you think about hands, when do you think about cutting short on the other side, and then we'll talk about like the drill, this Frequens Motus flow drill that allows us to do this, and then some specific pointers on how to actually get people to get past certain blockers. Okay, so if Andre, if I'm going to have him stand over here, when he cuts in, if I see this standard sort of 45-degree angle, again, I'm going to try to be here. Like the more I come this way, the more there's all this time that will take this extra angular time for me to get to a point where I can actually control, right? So it's better if I just start here. You know, I'm basically cutting at that same plane that is being cut in, just on top. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to do. And notice when I do it though, it puts him on my outside still. If you were to be committed, like he can still hit me, which is the reason that you got to control and then actually brush all the way down here to Schrankut to really close out that side. So that's our standard. So in terms of tactics then, so a really important idea is center line, right? So the shortest distance from my center to his center, some people call that the mother line. But the whole idea is like, I want to own that center as much as possible. So if he presents the threat, the blade, along that center as quickly as possible, then I need to address it. And that's where standard Krumphau comes in. If he's a little sloppy and actually allows, his elbow or his hands or any of these things to actually sort of come into that distance on that center line early, really important point, I'm not going to change anything in terms of my mechanics. I'm doing the same running off pattern, okay? So as that happens, I just do the natural thing, right? And basically clip that hand and do not stop, right? So very important, just with the blade, like I would push that down. From here, I'm also going to push that down and basically sort of brush through with the hands. This is a minor side note, but I think it's worth kind of mentioning since we're here. You'll notice, like, we have bare hands here. We could actually still do this drill quite well. There's a reason there's a flat, right? We know that they actually had tournaments where they actually intended to actually hit with the flat. You're scoring with the flat. So that flat is actually a great safety measure, right? So when this comes in, yeah, I could totally do this and get him with the edge, or long edge, short edge. You kind of rotate through both of those as you do this thing, but there's no reason that I can't actually go boom and actually just turn it so that you're actually hitting with the flat as that extra safety measure. And like, there are all these tools that you can use to actually be able to do these things, not super fast, but actually slow enough. And I really encourage people to think about tempo on these things. There's that saying, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? So it's really more important to be able to kind of link together these things in a very smooth way, so that, like, at the end of the day, then you can just do it quicker, faster. But if you're not in the right place at the right time, you're going to train bad timing and mechanics. So, okay, so we've talked about, with the blade as the initial cue. The alternative cue is presenting that arm, hand, elbow as a potential cue. And if that shows up on central line first, it's naturally going to get hit. The other cue then is when he swings, and instead of a more diagonal presentation, it's a little bit higher. So from here, if he gets really, really vertical, it just gets really hard for me to get on top. And so the key, the sort of like magic trick here is don't stay on top, actually go under, or durchwechseln, change through under. And so now, for the most part, I'm still going to do the same thing. I'm still going to try to brush and get that ear, that elbow, anything on that outside. But super, super important, get your hands up. Get your hands up. That's the only little adjustment here, where if I do this and there's pressure, that's, it's double hit territory, and possibly it could be that he can actually suppress me and actually not even let me get to his outside if that happens. So yeah, so just because he's vertical doesn't mean that, like, he's completely open and not defended. So from here, I really need to get here. And so if we actually just rotate this way, so there are pictures of this in, for instance, Joachim Meyer. The shortcut, this is the sort of like canonical thing that you want to see, where the crossbar is up. You've got the, let me see, long edge up, short edge down with crossed hands, right? So that's what's happening on the right side. Since we're talking about it, if we want to do left real quick, so same thing from here. I'm trying to do this crump normally, but if I get underneath, boom, same thing here, and it's this side then that would be on the left side. So yeah, so hopefully that kind of walks people through the cues, and I think we've covered a lot of it, right? So center line, you're going to do this motion every single time, and whatever happens to be in the path, that's your target, whether it's hands, blade, or getting to the outside. Keep those hands high, especially if you're going to go short underneath. I think that is sort of like a really classic mistake that you just naturally learn if, as you're learning to do the shortcut, you get whacked in the head, right? So again, you got to remember the other thing about this drill. The person who's actually throwing the cues, that's the coach, right? So it's very important for the person doing the coaching expect that the student's going to fail a bunch of times, right? So from a coaching perspective, one of the things, you got plenty of things you can play with. Play with being really obvious with the cue at the beginning so that they can recognize it, right? There are plenty of times, even right now, like if you look at sort of the action footage of when I was doing it with Andre here, like I made mistakes. There were times when I just didn't catch the cue. And remember, even those times, like hopefully there are good failure plans for all of those things. Like try to make sure that like if you mess up whatever happens, like at least you're using Krump in a way where you're defending yourself. But the student, first thing is recognition. They got to recognize the cue. And you can slow down the cue. You can make the cue more obvious, right? But do it enough until the student recognizes the cue. And then from there, you can tighten things up. You can change cadence and all of these other things. But start easy. Start easy and get people into, going from not even being able to recognize the cue and do something different to being able to do different behavior based on the cue. One thing, having done this drill, and like we've evolved this drill actually to a number of like levels above to what we've shown. We can do another video on that point if people like this video, and if you do, please comment. We'd love some feedback on how useful this kind of Frequens Motus training is. Like for us, it's super valuable. Hopefully, it's valuable for other people too. But yeah, so if people are interested in the more advanced stuff, it's very easy to add extra layers of complexity to get people really to the point where they can do this in a very practical, competitive kind of way. I think, there's a lot more we could say, and I think that's probably a good place to leave it. Like, I would say other conversations could actually be had pretty well. Now that we've shown sort of the physical pieces of this, we could have some really good conversations about this stuff in the comments. So again, please comment if this is something that you liked and if there's other stuff that you'd like to see. And see you in the next one.